So, it is now October, and you are looking for a process for how to get ready for NaNoWriMo. Look no further. Today I'm going to be taking you through the Duffer Brothers, so the creators of Stranger Things, advice for writing, kind of adapted from their Masterclass, and turn it into a process that you can use for Preptober, whether you are a plotter or a pantser. So let's get started. The first thing to know about their process, it is very, very iterative. The kind of heart of it, if I'm to extract and summarize, is sort of a brainstorm, evaluate, pitch, repeat. And so here is our process. All right, so iteration 1. Your first step is to write down your idea. This is the brainstorming phase. You're ideating your story concepts. So you take your little kernels, your nuggets of inspiration, and you shape them into a list. For each of your concepts, you write 100 to 200 words about it, keeping it sort of vague and big picture. You're not diving into details here. Your goal is to capture the essence of the idea, convey the concept's key elements like the tone, the comps, so your comparison titles, a sense of the overarching problem, maybe a bit of the hook, and any major questions or mysteries that might unfold. In step 2, you are deciding which idea to focus on. This is the evaluate phase. The Duffer Brothers suggest running big ideas, your ideas past friends, family. If you happen to have an agent, just kind of pitch it to them. See what people say. Another strategy is to take a break from your idea list and return a few weeks later with fresh eyes. Try to be objective. Is this interesting? Is this different? Have you seen anything like this before? Will people want it? Is it close enough that people will like it, but far enough that it isn't the exact same? It's a hard question to answer. And then 3, once you've evaluated and decided on an idea to focus on for NaNoWriMo, you are going to write the logline. This is pitch. So you are condensing your brainstorming and crafting a concise and compelling logline that encapsulates the core of your story. There are many resources out there for how to do this. Save the Cat is one of them. Susan Dennard has some. I will try to do some links below. I'm not going to get into how, but you're looking for 1 to 3 sentences here to capture the character, the goal, the conflict, and the stakes of your story. So that is the first process. We did brainstorm, evaluate, pitch, and here we go with the repeat. That's one cycle. If it is October 31st, or if you are a purist discovery writer, this might be as much as you need. You might stop here and get drafting, but if at this point you don't feel like you have enough to write the story, rinse and repeat. Here we go. The second cycle, step 1, is to blue sky. This is a framework that the Duffer Brothers use a lot. Blue skying is basically brainstorming. It's an open brainstorming session, either with a writing friend or a writing duo partner, or just scribbling stream of conscious style. In this phase, you're letting your imagination run wild. You're exploring world building, character development, and plot ideas. The idea here is to embrace the chaos. And here are some tips. Utilize the story's setting and mini settings, so like sub-settings. So if you're in a town, maybe there are warehouses, maybe there's a lake, maybe there's the school. Like, what are these sub-settings within your overall setting? Pay attention to the voice and the tone that naturally emerge. That's going to be important later. Make notes about the mood you envision for your story as you brainstorm. And then identify any emerging trends or patterns in your notes, in your brainstorming, that could have a significant impact on your story. Here are a few more tips as well from the Duffer Brothers Masterclass to consider. So the first one is you don't need to be original. And I think that's a really, really great point that they make. And as you watch them work, you really see where it comes from. So they suggest drawing generously from the stories that have stuck with you. Which films, TV shows, books have resonated with you deeply? Which sort of cultural touchstones do you love and that you could use for themes or references? You're doing this for 2 reasons. 1, your favorite stories are tried and true. Clearly they're successful. At least one person loves them. You can use them as a guide confidently knowing they work. The second reason to do this is it makes it easier to pitch your story. So remember when I talked about comps? Comps are so important, not only for framing, but just to get people to understand what it is as quickly as possible. So when I say it's ET, but the alien is from our world and and they were experimented on, that's 11 from Stranger Things. You know what that's going to be about. Or it's How to Train Your Dragon with a Spaceship. That's Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. Or it's Annie, but she's a struggling artist in the Renaissance. To me, that makes sense. Does that make sense to you? It's kind of immediate. You're like, oh, okay, so it's going to be sort of like a rags to riches. She's going to have maybe a patron who sort of adopts her, and she's going to be lured away by something, maybe corrupt, whatever. You can do the same thing for character. So you could have the character is the Miranda Priestley of surgery. Or you have Edmund from Narnia's Ark, but the kids are in the real world competing for, competing on a soccer team or competing in a quiz bowl together. You instantly have a sense of where that story is going when you use comps. You have a sense of the touchstones and you have a sense of the tone. So use them generously. Of course, you have to twist it in a unique and interesting way, but that's part of the fun. Another tip for this blue skying part is to stay broad right now. Avoid drowning in the details. Keep your focus on the big picture. Avoid getting bogged down in minutia. Too many details can stifle your creativity and can keep you from seeing the forest for the trees. In other words, this is not the time to write a 50-page world building guide. All right. The second stage of this process, we are organizing our thoughts, also known as evaluating. So you take your ideas from the blue sky process, whether it's, a list of comps and how you're going to twist them, the characters you're interested in, your overall problem, whatever, and try to look at them objectively. Likely, the ideas from the beginning of your session will be overridden by thoughts from later. Cross out what you're not using. Organize what's intriguing, what's getting your mind spinning, and what's exciting into a list or a quadrant. So I like to do a quadrant of plot, characters, setting, theme, just to kind of see what I have. If I have nothing in one of those boxes, I want to brainstorm a lot more in order to get ideas. Can you see the story taking shape? Put what you have in a format that makes sense to you, still in note form, and see if you can sort of start to suss out the story spine. Remember, at this point, it's important to simplify and streamline. As you review, focus on the essential elements of your story and eliminate any unnecessary complexity. The third step of this cycle is to zoom out for the big picture. Here is your pitch. Take a clean sheet of paper or a clean Word document or Google Doc or whatever, and write down your updated concept. Note the main characters that have emerged, no more than 3. Highlight the major beats and transitions in your story, ensuring there's a clear path from A to B. That's really what you're focusing on in this step. You want to pitch going from A to B with maybe a couple milestones in the middle. The pitch can be longer than your logline. It should be maybe more of a one-page synopsis, but it shouldn't be longer than a page. You're still very early on. You want it to pique curiosity, show change, and make it clear what the story is. You're pitching it to yourself right now as much as anyone else. You can use whatever format you want to remind yourself why you're excited about exploring this story. At this point, we know even more about our story. We have a synopsis. We have the spine. We know how we're getting from point A to point B, or at least we know we're getting from point A to point B. We know there's a change. If you feel good now, start writing. If you want to go deeper, I suggest zooming in on character. Well, really zooming in on each of these quadrants. I'm going to do character in depth, and then you apply the same process. So a bit of organization kind of helps here first. With characters, you're going to list your most important characters, thinking in broad strokes. So you have their name. If you don't have your name, you maybe have their role or their archetype. You have some demographic information, maybe their social status, some power dynamics, abilities, etc. In your brainstorming phase, number 1. So now you're diving deeper into character development. You take another blue sky approach, but this time with greater detail. Think about the character's backstory. You're mostly asking yourself why. Why would the character want this? Why would this problem matter to this character? Why are they in this story to begin with? For example, in Stranger Things, the sheriff's emotional connection to the missing child is driven by the loss of his own daughter. Here, you're still avoiding unnecessary details, and you're not creating backstory just to create it. You're being selective about the information. Think of the things that will contribute to the story, that will deepen your understanding of the character's role in this story, what they care about, and what is fueling their change. Avoid creating a bloated, disconnected story Bible. 2, we are identifying the character arcs. This is our evaluate stage. So determine how your characters will evolve throughout the story. You have some information, you know some backstory. Now we're defining that evolution. Are they going through a coming of age transformation, moving from broken to redemption, or experiencing a shift from selfish to selfless? Here you're ensuring the plot, the problem, the things you've laid out in earlier steps facilitate those changes. You're making sure everything goes together. Here, 3, our pitch is revisit the character desires and goals. So identify your character's desires and goals one more time, especially if you have multiple groups of characters. Here you're considering how their goals might overlap or converge, or how their problems are related. Write short descriptions of the characters as if you're pitching them, by which I mean write a few sentences that will pique a reader's curiosity about the character and make them want to read more. So we're highlighting what's different, interesting, conflicting, how they'll influence the story. You might be thinking, what role is this character fulfilling? Why is this character the right one to fulfill the role? Or even, how are this character and this plot necessary to each other? And the pitch that comes out of this, and it's a pitch per character, answers those questions. So with all that time spent on character, if you still want to keep on outlining, apply the same process to your plot. So you organize what you have so far by identifying your starting point, your destination, anything you have for in between, and then you're diving deeper. You blue sky, you organize and evaluate, and then you try to condense all of this crazy blue sky, massive amounts of information into a pitch. And you can do this iteratively all the way until you have an outline, or you can stop at any one of these iterations, any one of these cycles, and start writing when you feel you have enough information. So that is an adapted process from the Duffer Brothers Masterclass on how you might want to prepare for NaNoWriMo. Do you do something iterative, or tell me about your process? I would love to hear about it. Also, if there's any specific writers' processes that you know of that might be fun to do a video on. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.